Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Tens of thousands of men, women, and children joined the Washington March for Our Lives and 800 sibling marches around the world. In that 800 number was a rally in Calvert City, and with us today are two veterans of that rally. They are Krista Dubrock from Paducah and Heather Adams of Harvey in Marshall County. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Chris has on a shirt, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, and you have a March for Our Lives commemorative shirt in the Marshall County blue and orange there. You had a personal reason for this rally in Calvert City, did you not? Tell us about that.
I did. My son he's a freshman at Marshall County High School, and he was 20 yards from the shooter when the first shots were fired in January. And
did he know the shooter?
He did. My son was a band kid, so was the shooter.
Mine was too.
He loves it. But he did know the shooter, and he expressed interest in being able to actively do something to reduce gun violence. So with that information, he kind of decided he wanted to try and have a rally in Marshall County, which was going to be a task, I know. But he gathered a large group of students from Marshall County High School, from Murray High School, and Callaway County High School, and we started having meetings, and everybody showed up, like people from the community, all kinds of people from around the community showed up to help and support and help plan the event.
And he spoke.
He did.
Eloquently,
yes.
I might add.
Thank you.
So, Moms Demand Action, Paducah chapter?
That's correct.
Tell us how that got started.
Well, it's kind of a funny story because the first time that I was contacted by moms was January 7th of 2018. Prior to that, I had a lot of interest in gun violence prevention. And so I'd done a lot of research myself online, but just kind of in the weeds, floating around, just not having a whole lot of direction. And then on January 7th of 2018, I got a call from Betsy Roop, which she's the membership lead at the Kentucky State Moms Demand Action chapter. And she talked to me for a little while and said, hey, I think there might be some interest in a chapter in your area, which surprised me, but thrilled me. And so she said, let's talk if you're okay with that. I might get you involved and hook you up with a couple other people that I know that are interested. And so we kind of emailed back and forth a little while, and then sadly the Marshall County shooting happened, and it was a difficult day for everyone. I know for Heather, but it was a difficult day for everyone in this area, I think, considering what happened in '97 at Heath. Mm-hmm. We waited. I don't know if anyone else felt this way, but I felt like we waited all day to find out what had happened at Marshall County. We waited hours. We couldn't get any information. But finally, when we did, it saddened me so much that I was 100% gung-ho to get this chapter going, mm-hmm. and ended up working with the Kentucky leads to reach out to the people that were involved. So we ended up meeting on February 6th with our organizational meeting, and mm-hmm. our very first chapter meeting, which Heather was a part of, was on March 14th.
Mm-hmm. The school shootings have been going on for years. Why do you think the Parkland shooting seems to have galvanized people into action?
Gosh, that's a good question.
I don't think it'd be answered, but you think about it, you go back to Columbine, Sandy Hook, the list goes on and on and on. And now you have this tremendous upsurge. And being a native of Western Kentucky, as I know you are, I believe with your accent, you're probably not from here originally. But this is very conservative, very gun country. And the fact that that rally was held in Calvert City, as our English friends say, I was gobsmacked. I could not believe that it could happen there. Also, the fact that there were politicians in the crowd and politicians who spoke. Will Coursey, state representative, one of my former students. Now, I know Will's not running for the legislature, but he is running for county judge executive, which means he'll face the same constituents. Alonzo Pennington is running for Congress. Did that surprise you all that you had, and by the way, there were politicians at your meeting. Did that surprise you, given the power of the NRA over politicians?
In my mind, I think people have reached a point where they're ready for common sense gun policies. I mean, as you said, this is an area where we mainly have responsible gun owners. And as a matter of fact, there are moms in our organization which are gun owners. Just need responsibility around that. I think people are ready to take the next step for some of the more responsible actions towards and around guns.
Let me read you a statement. This is from the NRA. You've probably heard this, what they said about the march. They call it a march for their lives. They also said, today's protests aren't spontaneous. Gun-hating billionaires and Hollywood elites are manipulating and exploiting children as part of their plan to destroy the Second Amendment and strip us of our rights to defend ourselves and our loved ones. How do you react to that?
Well, I'll react to that since my son organized a rally in gun country. We didn't get any money from Hollywood elites. He hasn't been contacted by any Hollywood elites or very rich people. Really, the rally here was largely orchestrated by our students. It was spontaneous in the sense that had we not had these two experiences, Marshall County and Parkland, the rally may not have happened, but we weren't put up to it by anyone other than our student organizers. So,
yeah, it's completely grassroots organizational.
And that may be a key to the reaction of the NRA, that they're scared this is grassroots. And again, I did a little informal survey of candidates, just to ask them, what are you doing with this NRA survey? And about 9 of them responded, and several were throwing them away, and others wrote back some pretty pointed responses. And some of these candidates are gun owners. Again, this is incredible. Then you had the two lawmakers who stood up on the floor of the House and gave rather pointed attacks on the NRA. And then Will Coursey at the rally said he was not going to renew his NRA membership. Now, a few years ago, that would be political suicide in this part of the world.
You're right.
This is astonishing that this is happening finally after all these years. And and the NRA's attitude seems to be any form of gun regulation leads to what they call the slippery slope of total gun confiscation. Have you all caught any grief from the local gun enthusiasts over what you're doing?
You know, amazingly, I haven't very much. We're mainly, I think it's important to note that we're anti-gun violence, but we're not anti-gun. And I think as we get more out there, people will understand that a little bit better and see that, and really the NRA members themselves mostly are responsible gun owners. There's some extremist type leadership going on in the NRA.
Right.
But I think Heather may have a different story on this.
we have had some a little bit of problems with people coming after us on social media. That's pretty easy to brush off. You know, you just lock your pages down and don't answer messages from people you don't know. That's pretty easy to ignore. Don't read the comment section if you don't, you know, if you don't want your blood pressure to go up, I guess. But the kids at school have had some instances of minor bullying and such since they participated in.
From fellow students?
Yes, yes. And adults too. I mean, the adults have been coming after them on the internet. But they did have a little bit of problem on Monday at school when they returned to school, and they were nervous to go back to school and face their classmates who, hold different opinions than they do. And they did experience some bullying on Monday, and they let it get them down just a little bit, but not even for the whole school day. They reached out and I spoke with them a little bit, and they picked themselves up, and on Tuesday they all wore their rally shirts to school. Mm-hmm. And by Wednesday it's all over now. By Wednesday it was just a normal school day, mm-hmm. They don't have really normal school days anymore, but as normal as it could be normal school day.
That comment struck me. The MC was Mitch Coy, who was another student of mine a few years ago. And I remember I talked to Mitch afterwards, and he said, when I was in school, I thought about tests, and to use his words, stupid stuff, whatever that was. And now you have gun drills, what to do if there's a shooter. My wife taught at Mayfield High School for 37 years, and they had gun drills. We had a gun drill here on campus a few years ago where the local SWAT team in full kit came out and had a mock shooter, and they had moulages with blood, the whole thing. And this is astonishing that this is going on in this country. And that really struck me. And when I was in school, now we did have drills in case the Russians dropped an atomic bomb on us, but most of us thought that was pretty remote. But this is real. This is real. And I remember hearing the news about this shooting in Marshall County, and I thought, Heath, now Marshall County, now where? And do you think that, well, as moms, did you all have the feeling that this could never happen here? It would have to be somewhere else?
Absolutely not. I didn't.
I did.
I have absolutely, no. I'm originally from DeKalb, Illinois. It's home of NIU. Exactly mm-hmm. one decade before the shootings in Parkland, there was a mass shooting at my home university. Northern Illinois
right.
University.
Yeah.
There were five students were killed that day, mm-hmm. and another 28 were injured. I'm no stranger to gun violence, and I know that it doesn't matter where you're at or what you're doing, you could turn around and that could be your last moment. When my mom called me that morning to tell me that there had been shots fired at the high school, I wasn't surprised. Mm-hmm. I didn't lose it. I didn't cry. I got a hold of my child. Yeah. I screamed a little loud, incoherent screaming, but it wasn't tears. It was fear, I think, until I got a hold of Seth. And found out that he was safe. And then I just kicked into helper mode, Yeah. So.
Well, can you tell us what he told you about how he experienced? I can't imagine. I've never heard a shot fired in anger at anyone. He goes to school, routine school day, January. You said he was 20 yards away. Mm-hmm. That's 60 feet?
Yes.
When he heard the gun fired, what did he think it was?
The first shot, he thought somebody had smacked like a lunch tray on the lunch table or whatever.
Yeah, a student told me she thought it sounded like a balloon popping. So you don't know what it is.
Right. And then the second shot, he knew exactly what was going on. He has heard gunshots before. I mean, where we're from, it was a fairly regular occurrence to hear gunshots outside.
Yeah.
So he heard that second shot and he said, "That's shots." And his group of friends were standing up from their breakfast table, which the shooting happened in the commons, and there's just big plate glass windows kind of separating the commons from the cafeteria. And he threw his book bag over like 2 tables and took off running in the opposite direction, followed by all of his friends. He exited the cafeteria toward the back, opposite side from where the shooter was, and crossed the hall and entered a classroom. At the classroom, they were met by a teacher. They shuffled into the classroom. Teacher closed the door, locked the door, barricaded the door, had the kids kind of go around this. There's physical barriers, bookshelves and stuff like that, and he kind of had the kids go around that corner, and the teacher stood watch at that door and just kind of peered out the door window, from time to time to make sure that the students that he had in that room were going to stay safe. And Seth said it wasn't until they got back into that corner and all the lights were off and things quieted down that the teacher was able to help him feel like he might make it. But for the next 5 minutes, from what they tell me, they feared for their lives. They didn't know if the shooter was going to be coming room to room, or what was going to be happening.
Could they hear gunfire in the room?
I think by the time they got to the classroom, the gunfire had ended. The gunfire at the shooting at Marshall County, it didn't last long. It was, he started shooting, and then when he was done, he was done. So
I think that's the most terrifying part of the uncertainty. Is he coming in here? And then you talk about the running part. I know, and listening to my wife talking about that, there are various theories about what you should do. Should you hunker down? Should you hide? Should you run? And again, that all adds to the confusion.
Thank goodness for that teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know who that teacher is, but I'd like to tell him thank you.
And you read stories about teachers all over the country doing that, and teachers who lost their lives in Florida. So going forward, what do you hope your organization can accomplish? Awareness, is that the main goal?
Awareness is one of the primary goals. We also want to make sure that we're able to advocate for change. Universal background checks would be a great idea.
And I know a lot of gun owners who are fine with that.
Exactly. I think about 90% of Americans would be great with that. Just responsibility around gun ownership. You mentioned a minute ago about, did you think this could happen? I didn't think it could happen because it had already happened here. It had happened at Heath.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I think I said this before, we're kind of safe now. I had no thought of statistically this could happen again. So now Heather said what she said, and now I see that, and after getting involved with this organization, it is very, very possible. Roughly 96 Americans every day are killed through gun violence.
And that's another part. It's not just school shootings.
Right.
In fact, most people die from handguns rather than long guns, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's all. It's the easy access to weapons like this. Does your group have like a set number of goals you're trying to reach, or just?
It's not a set number. It's just primarily advocating for change and responsibility around guns, making sure that kids are kept away from guns. Guns are stored safely and away from the ammunition. We'd love to see that happen everywhere. Like I say, I think a lot of the misperception about the organization is around guns, is that we're anti-gun violence. We're not anti-gun.
Are you going to launch public awareness campaigns, going with the media? What exactly are you all doing?
Yeah, we have a few of those. One of them that will be coming up in June is a Wear Orange Day, where all of our organization will wear orange to commemorate those who've died through gun violence.
Why
That's-
orange, do you know?
Because it's associated with guns if you think about it. Gun safety.
Yeah, Hunter Orange.
Yeah, you wear
Right,
orange
you do.
so that you can be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things. We're also, as a Paducah chapter, hoping to get out and meet some of the people around here. So, you know, we're going to maybe be at some events around Paducah and hope to just
And of course,
be aware.
you all are not all Paducans or Marshall Counties. You come from all over the Purchase, probably Southern Illinois too,
Yeah.
as well. Well, the other part of this, of course, is politics. It all comes down to politics about are you all going to do any lobbying? Are you going to contact local representatives? Have politicians come and speak to your group?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the Kentucky moms do a lot of lobbying, and they were in Frankfort yesterday because they had heard that there might have been a situation like what happened with the pension was going to happen around another, a gun type legislation. So, you know, we have a system of organizations that we can contact our legislators and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And again, this is what I've been observing Kentucky politics pretty closely for over 40 years. And if you had told me the time would come when 9 Western Kentucky representatives would tell the NRA to take a hike, I would say, well, you're out of your mind. And that's happening. And you see this, there's this tremendous enthusiasm, this upswelling. Are you going to do any more rallies?
I wanted to add that, I mean, the upswing is from the courage of the kids.
It is. And this is it's amazing. These are kids doing this, and a lot of them can't even vote yet.
Yes, sir. Oh, but their time is coming, and those legislators better listen because these kids are not going to put up with it.
That's the impression I got, and I think some politicians just, it's just a bunch of kids mouthing off, but yet I think they would do that at their own peril if they didn't heed what's going on. But again, this is nationwide. This is absolutely fascinating to see the enthusiasm, but when it gets to places like Calvert City, it's everywhere. It's
encouraging.
Oh, it definitely is, well, of course, each generation, my generation is the 1960s, civil rights, Vietnam War protests, and these kids, all of a sudden now they've got this issue, and it's huge. In fact, this reminds me very much of the Vietnam War protests and the civil rights movement. Of course, school safety is a civil right. It's a basic human right.
Exactly.
To do that. So what else? Time's getting a little short, but I want you all do some more talking. I don't want to talk all the time.
Well, I am still in touch with my group of student organizers. As it turns out, I'm pretty passionate about mentoring these children, seeing them, develop their ideas and be able to put these ideas into action and encourage them to use facts, to develop their opinions. And
well, I was struck at how polished and how eloquent these kids were. There was a young fella, I don't remember his name, but I mean, he was on fire. And there was a young woman too. I think her name was Cox, who
Mary Cox.
who was passionate. And your son did a great job.
Thank you.
He really did. And I don't know in high school if I were 16, 17 years old, how I would have felt getting up in front of a big crowd making a speech like that.
I would have been terrified.
Yeah, but they were so polished.
Well,
I mean, they really did a great job.
They wrote their speeches far ahead enough, ahead, so that they could have time to edit them and talk them out. And we had some time with a speech coach from Murray State University.
Oh.
she opened her classroom up to us and let the kids come in and do their speeches. We had a high attendance at the meeting that night, which was great. So the kids got to actually speak to a group of people before they got up on stage at the rally to speak to a group of people. They got to speak to a group of people, some of which they didn't know until that night. So it was pretty helpful in giving them their wings for the next day.
They were so passionate.
They were. The passion was, and you can't teach that. That comes from within. And I was amazed how passionate they were. All of them. There were, I think, 11 speakers, I believe.
There were 11 student
count.
speakers, yes.
Yeah. And they were from Marshall, Callaway, and Murray High.
Correct.
Yeah. And the crowd was too. And I walked around the crowd and talked to a lot of different people. And they were all impressed with how good these kids were. And I think something else impressed me too was when I came up, Calvert City loaned a fire truck for this and the big flag. And that in of itself put the Calvert City government in support of that rally because it's in a fire truck like that.
I'll tell you what, Calvert City Fire Department called and asked if we would allow them to come with the big ladder truck. This was not us reaching out to them and saying, hey, this would be really great if you could bring your ladder truck out. No, they actively reached out to us and said, we know you're doing this thing and this is important and we'd really like to show our support. Let us bring out our ladder truck and put up the big flag.
Well, that's
and
wonderful.
Our student organizers were there to help, hold the flag as it was, being raised up and, keeping it off of the ground while they were attaching it to the ladder. And
yeah.
I think it was a galvanizing moment for those children in realizing that peaceful protest is one of the most patriotic things you can do.
In fact, when the young man who introduced the Pledge of Allegiance said that, we're going to engage in a very patriotic activity, peaceful protest, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. So we're almost out of time. Very quickly, can you give us a contact number if someone wants to
Yeah,
call? Go ahead.
If someone's interested in Moms Demand Action, they can text the word READY to 64433.
Very good. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Barry.
Thank you.
I'm Barry Craig. My guests today were Krista Dubrock and Heather Adams. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.